Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Climbing Sycamores podcast, where we look at today's topics to get a better view of Christianity. I'm Annie Beege, and I'm joined by my friends Ben Sadler and Matt Harbach. Hey, welcome. Another day, another podcast.
Oh, yeah. Let's get after it. I heard you guys had quite a night. It's a big secret.
Big adventure last night.
I want to know about this adventure. What happened?
You would know if you were on Facebook.
Oh, I don't do that.
Connecting with all the cool adults on
The cool
Facebook.
adults on Facebook, yeah. Matt went fishing yesterday
Ah.
I did. It was beautiful out.
in the Rock River. Is that right?
Rock River, yep.
Mm-hmm. And then he's like, I caught these fish. Come over. Let's clean them and cook them and eat them. And I've never done that before until yesterday.
What'd you think?
Which part?
The cleaning and the eating. Did you?
The eating was fine. I haven't died of dysentery yet, so we're good.
The eating was all right.
Now, do you
It's good.
scale them or do you fillet them?
Nah, I just took the skin off.
You just take the skin off. Yeah. What kind of fish were they?
I'll let Matt answer.
White bass and walleye.
Nice. Ooh, walleye tastes good. Do you batter them and how do you make
Some
them?
kind of like breadcrumbs and we just fried them, yeah.
Just like a real light breading, yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah, so, but...
And it was educational too.
It was
And now
educational.
Annie's a pro at cleaning fish.
Now, when I have to go into survivalist mode, I will be comfortable and know what to do. So...
That's great. That's a great learning. What else is there to do now? You know everything.
I know. It was great. I felt very accomplished, even though I didn't. Matt did most of it.
Do
Matt
you have
did
a good
95%.
knife? That makes all the difference.
It does make all the difference. I needed to sharpen mine more, but
Yeah.
it was all
It should
right.
slice like butter.
Yeah, no, it was good. I like cleaning fish. It's not like the first time you do it, you're like, you don't know what you're doing, but after a while, it's not.
Do you
that
clean them in the kitchen, in the house, and it smells like
Yes.
fish for a couple of days? Okay.
hard. My house doesn't smell like fish.
I don't think it did. Oddly, yeah, I don't think it did.
You take the trash out right away, which freaked me out because I threw something away in the big dumpster. I just saw a fish face staring at me. I was like, oh yeah, that's in there.
Next step, Annie goes fishing.
I've been. It's
She's scared of how much she loves it. That's what it is.
That's what it is.
no.
She's bored out of her mind. You have to like go to the right spot where they're like humming. You got to be able to pull something out every couple seconds. That could keep her.
But speaking of fish, let's
Yeah.
talk about today's topic.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah. Great segue,
It's called a
Matt.
segue.
Yeah. So Richard Dawkins is known as one of the leader of the new atheist movement. They're not that new anymore. They were really popular, especially after 9/11. Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Daniel Dennett, and Christopher Hitchens are kind of they called them the four horsemen of the new atheist group. And they were different than maybe old atheist arguments where they were like really like militant, angry, really belittling of Christianity, of any kind of religion. And they really rose to popularity after 9/11 because they said, look what happens look what religion does. And they just kind of put all religions into
Into
one
the
basket.
extremist,
Yeah, and put them all into one basket and said, this is the problem with religion. And yeah, for the last 20 plus, really his whole career, he's been ridiculing and making fun of Christianity. And he's a biologist. I think he teaches or taught at Oxford. So, has high credentials and things like that, but really does a lot to kind of make fun of any kind of Christian idea. Well, recently he was interviewed, and I don't know if we can, maybe you just search the Richard Dawkins interview. He's interviewed, and they were asking him about how instead of celebrating Easter in England, they were celebrating Ramadan, and how the rise of really Islam in England. And he was talking about how he's not happy about that, how he's concerned about that. And he says, I'm actually, if you want to call me something, I'm culturally Christian because I think Christianity is a decent religion. I think it's superstitious and I think it's totally nonsense. But I like the morals that come out of Christianity. So there's a lot of surprises in this interview. One of them is that Richard Dawkins would ever say anything halfway positive about Christianity, because he's just clumped him in with every other world religion and done a lot to ridicule and make fun of them. And then the other thing that's interesting is, that he would even align himself with Christianity and say he's culturally Christian, and says some good things have come out of Christianity. And then he kind of tries to undermine that whole thing. And then his very real concern about Islam. So the reason I kind of perk up when I hear Richard Dawkins is because I remember the first time I heard him, I was probably 15 years ago, my vicar year, my internship year, kind of trying to figure out, I got to figure this out. I'm going to be a pastor. I'm going to go make this my livelihood. I remember watching a video, I don't know how I got onto it, of him talking at Berkeley, giving a lecture at Berkeley. Huge stadium, huge packed crowd, and he's going slide after slide of making fun of Christianity. And I was like, oh man. I remember thinking, am I doing the wrong thing? Is this ridiculous? Is this stupid?
Making fun of in the sense of was Mary actually a virgin?
That kind of stuff.
Jesus' mother. Did Jesus couldn't have risen from the dead? Like, that's ridiculous, right? That type of stuff.
Yeah, and he says science now, because of Darwin, his point was, now because of Darwin, we know how everything started. We know how it all came to be. We know how it all works. And maybe back in the past when we didn't have that knowledge, we could believe in religion. But now that we have all this science, we know pretty much how everything started, pretty much how everything works. And the more we study science, the more there'll be less need for God, is kind of how his argument went. So then, obviously I got over that and saw the weakness of that argument throughout the years. But I was really surprised to hear him say positive things about Christianity, and, really even kind of the fear that he has that Christianity would be kind of taken out of his culture, out of England, as the rise of Islam and the popularity of Islam. I thought that was just so fascinating, that the religion he worked so hard to undermine, now he's almost wishing that it stuck around. Because the reality is, you take out Christianity and it's not replaced with nothing or science only. Something else is going to come in, and you might not like it. So those are just all the ideas and thoughts that came to my mind as I listened to the interview. I don't know, where do you guys want to go with this?
Well, I just want to say what he said. So the interview was done by LBC and it was with Rachel Johnson, but he says, I must say, so this is in response to the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, turned on 30,000 lights for Ramadan, which is the Muslim holy month, on the cusp of Easter weekend. And he says, I must say, I'm slightly horrified to hear that Ramadan is being promoted instead. I feel that we are a Christian country. Mm-hmm. What does that mean if you are not, you almost need to remove, when you say I'm a cultural Christian, you need to remove Christian out of that. Mm-hmm. Because I think, we've even talked about this on previous podcasts, how you don't need to claim yourself as a Christian in order to be generous and be nice and help your fellow neighbor. You don't need to do that. So I don't know why he doesn't just say, I like some of the morals and values of Christianity, and just not say I'm a cultural Christian. You just say I appreciate being nice to people and doing unto others, and
that would really go against some of his previous statements, because he thinks that overall religion promotes kind of backwards ideas, and that you can reach the same or better conclusions without religion. And so he's never going to say that he I'm not going to say never. Anybody would say if Christians believe that charity is a good thing. Well, yeah, I agree with that,
Mm-hmm.
But
in this interview, he does say, I'm a cultural Christian.
Well, yeah. But then he goes on to say, which this is the part that I was kind of like, okay, guy. He was like, I love Christmas and I love the hymns and the, all the pomp and circumstance that goes along with Christmas. And it's so, I feel it. I love it. I love the cathedrals and things like that. So he has some nostalgic or like it evokes some type of feeling out of him to be, in the Christmas spirit and all that stuff. So what? Like now you're literally dealing with your feelings.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, what his point is, the quote here is, he says, "I think it would matter if we substituted any alternative religion. That would be truly dreadful." And he is very anti-Islam. And so he goes on to say that he says Christianity is fundamentally a decent religion in the way that Islam is not. And so that's his point, is
Right.
that he doesn't believe in Christianity, but Christianity at least is peaceful and reasonable in a way that he believes Islam is not.
And I just saw, in that interview, it seemed like there was a fear that, like, if we lose Christianity in this country and it's replaced with Islam, we're in big trouble. And I just thought, what a surprising thing for him to say. I thought it was surprising in the sense of, like, that he had to acknowledge the blessings and benefits of Christianity.
But he really didn't. That was the thing that got me.
Well, he had to go back into his old speech about how I still think it's complete nonsense.
Yeah.
But the fear is, like, I'm living off of the freedoms that you have based on, Christian morals.
Yes, exactly.
So I don't want to lose that ability to
But
speak freely.
I don't even think he didn't even acknowledge that, really. And that was like Annie and I were talking. It was like, it goes back to, and it's this, since we were talking about it before, the same, like the Sam Harris and the free will and the good versus evil thing, is that if you buy into the materialism, then you have to take it to the conclusion that says that, okay, there is no supernatural, there is no good and evil. Therefore, humans are by nature purely material, and all religion is self-imposed. Not that humans' default state is to be religious. And that's where the debate dies, because Christians and atheists debate each other with a different set of cards, because our fundamental belief about humans is just different. And I look at that and I say, okay, when have humans ever been atheistic? Like en masse? Never. And the only time it seems reasonable is after Christianity has already established all the principles of, like,
order,
freedom and order, equality, personal liberty. Those are somewhat tied to Christianity in this, like, because Christianity holds people personally accountable. And Christianity says that all humans are created in the image of God. And one other point is, like, even if you don't have an established church, like in Europe, they had an established church that at least in name held the crown accountable. It's like you have a king, but everyone's watching him, and he was anointed, or he was coronated by the Pope. And so in that little way, it's like, okay, he's got to kind of play ball with the church here. And that obviously didn't always work, because people are very terrible to each other. But you can't have, it's very fortuitous for these atheists who are living with the benefits of a Christian culture to be like, this is all great. We just need to take it one step further, cut God completely out of the picture. It's like, how do you think we got here?
Right. Yeah, and how long can you run on a foundation? It's like cutting the head off the chicken. It might run around for a little while, but it's going to fall over. And if you cut off the head of this whole idea of Christ, you can't sustain that for very long. And I do think you see there's a whole different value system that's replacing it. And atheism doesn't have the power to replace Christianity. It doesn't have the foundation. It doesn't. No. And we've talked about this before, that when you throw the word around science is going to give us the answer. Like, man, I was just talking to somebody a while ago who is not a believer, and he was a therapist for many years, and he just said, I I don't believe in science anymore. I used to say that science was my religion, but I realized that when I started doing some of these studies and on how our brain works and everything, that a lot of it gets skewed to who gets the funding and how that all works. And so this isn't the foundation that you can build your life on. And it's interesting that he does bring up traditions, like these rich traditions that give us meaning to our life of the holidays and the gatherings. Like they have deep meaning.
Yeah.
But how long can you have that meaning if you don't believe it's true?
And people are religious. This is what Annie and I said last week.
Inherently.
Yeah.
If you don't have an ideal to strive for, then you find something that's less than ideal to strive for.
Right.
Like climate activism or conservatism or liberalism.
Right.
And that's a horrible idea.
Right.
Because those don't even claim to be perfect.
Right.
And you can punch holes in them right and left.
Mm-hmm.
And all those are based on this idea that we're right and everybody else is wrong.
Them.
Yeah, us versus them. And there was a Bob Dylan song that you're going to serve somebody. And he said, it may be the devil, or it may be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. And that's that's the idea. You're going to have to worship something.
That song is like weirdly profound.
Oh, it's incredible. It's an incredible song. Yeah.
So why do I feel like this is just such, like, I don't know much about this Dawkins character. This is, being around you guys, kind of the first I've really heard of him or dealt with him. But this whole thing that just came out, it just feels like such doublespeak.
Yeah.
And it just feels so unsubstantiated. It just feels so just not credible.
Right.
So why is that? Why does this just feel like so much doublespeak? Is it because he's using the word Christian? Is it because that foundation is there? Like, it just feels, and I don't know why people are continuing to listen to him. Like, it just feels just
he has
not
given
credible.
a lot of, so his audience is kind of people who are deconstructing.
Sure.
And, he really kind of champions a person who like comes to the realization that science proves everything and Christianity is silly and religion is silly. And it's the reason we have so many problems in our world and holy wars and all these things. And so that's his audience. And he has done it with lots of vitriol and sarcasm and demeaning. He's very demeaning towards anyone who wouldn't. And so I think people get emboldened by that. They're like, oh yeah, I'm not going to be one of those silly Christian people or stupid religious people. And so what makes this news is that the guy who has been really, there used to be, before the new atheists, if you would listen to debates between Christians and maybe atheists or scientists or whatever, back in the 70s and 80s, it was always kind of like let's talk about the facts and let's come to some conclusions, and you bring up your argument and I bring up my, like, Dawkins is
rhetoric.
just making fun of
rhetoric.
Christians. Yeah, they just ridicule people and lots of those kinds of arguments. So to have somebody who has spent his whole career ridiculing religion to now kind of be afraid that the thing that I was ridiculing, when that goes, a new religion's going to come in here and they're not going to allow me to say this kind of stuff.
I hope he's sweating. I hope he is sweating. And I think I've said this before, like, I personally am not uncomfortable. I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous to think there was a virgin birth. I know it sounds ridiculous to believe that somebody rose from the dead. I don't care that I believe that. In other words, I don't care if I look stupid. Right. Like, It doesn't bother me at all.
Right.
To believe that,
right.
And believe that I don't know everything and that I don't have to know everything. It literally couldn't bother me less.
Yeah.
And it would have to, and as I said to you, it would have to be like that good and that miraculous. It would have to be that stunning of an event for this to have any merit,
Right.
So,
and to change the world like it
right.
has, right? We divide history by this. It's a miracle. And
if it was just Mary getting knocked up, like, actually, and like this wouldn't be a thing, like true. if Jesus' body was stolen from the grave, none of this would be happening right now.
Yeah, because it's pretty unremarkable. I mean, he only lived 3 years, or he only had like 3 years of ministry from age 30 to 33. Didn't really travel too much. Didn't write a book. Didn't conquer a kingdom. it's without the resurrection, why would this be
He
be
really
remembered?
is just a dude, then, isn't he?
He's just a dude.
Yeah, just a dude.
Yeah.
I mean, that's had some good teaching,
Sure.
but the resurrection all of a sudden
Yeah.
then makes everything he did credible, everything he did incredibly meaningful, and it changes everything. So yeah, I feel the same way. Where yes, what science, as much as we can understand science, is based on repeatable things. So I want to know how anesthesiology works so that the next time somebody's in surgery, they fall asleep and wake back up again. Like, you want these repeatable things that happen over and over again. Yeah, children and how food works and all that kind of stuff. But we believe that God designed that. That's actually how science started, was based on biblical beliefs, like Isaac Newton, who said, like, the reason this works is because there is a God who has organized the world. There's a God who's put order. And what a miracle is that God is stepping into the world that he created. He is doing something out of order. And so, yeah, you can't repeat that. You can't study that. You can't, the only thing you can really study is, like, from a historical perspective, look at the results. I can't repeat what happened, but something that caused Jewish people who worshiped on Saturday for over 1,000 years to now worship on Sunday, that's a big deal. Something that caused all of the original followers of Jesus to be martyred for their faith and say they saw Jesus alive. People will die for things they hope to be true, but they won't die for what they know to be a lie. So yeah,
Context and
you have all this historical evidence, historical science that really points to a miracle that it happened. So you can't repeat it in the same way you can repeat other scientific stuff.
Maybe a cultural Christian, because it seems like a lot of, many people will say Jesus Christ existed and Jesus Christ taught some good things. And we believe that, and we like the things that he taught. So therefore, I am a cultural Christian. Maybe that's just like that's how, in my head, how I can identify, like, a cultural Christian is somebody who believes that he existed, that they believe that his teachings were good, but they don't believe in, like, the
Miracles.
supernatural piece of it.
Yeah, Thomas Jefferson was a cultural Christian.
Okay.
That's not his Bible. He cut out every miracle in the Bible, and you can get a Thomas Jefferson Bible that has all these things that he cut out, and he wanted just the morals. But
so, what is the tie? What do you think is the tie? Like, is it the sacrificial love of Jesus' sacrifice? Like, what is the tie to these morals and Jesus Christ?
yeah, so I think the resurrection and the fact that grants forgiveness of sins gives value to human beings and meaning to the human existence. And once you have meaning and values, now you have a reason to not treat people like garbage. If we are all survival of the fittest, if it is all
Correct.
dog eat dog world, if our only job is to pass on our genetic material and do whatever we have to do to make that happen, then there's no value. But the fact that Jesus comes into the world and pays for human beings' sin, because sin is a problem and it's a moral issue, because humans are valuable, that all of a sudden, that's the foundation. The life, death, and resurrection of Jesus is the foundation of our morals, because it gives dignity to human beings. So that's how I would say it.
Good.
Now you can't. Then you try to detach that whole idea, the whole story, and still try to say humans have value. Where does their value come from? Why are they more valuable than animals? Why are they more? Why should we protect them? Why should we be honest? Why should we not step over people? And so other religions play by a whole new set of rules, and I think that's what Dawkins is seeing. And he's like, "Oh no, I don't like these rules. I like the rules where everybody has value."
So we need to get him to connect the dots between, not us personally, but
Right.
He
God, won't, but yeah,
connecting the dots between the teachings of Jesus
Right.
and the sacrifice,
Yeah.
life, death, and resurrection. That we need to get him to intersect with those two things.
And I was gonna say I I don't think that what he said in this interview is like completely out of left field for him. I think his main point has always been not just against religion. Like, he is against religion, but for the purpose of being against the dangers that religion can bring. And so to me, it makes sense that, if he's seeing what he perceives as oppressive Islam, then he's going to prefer Christianity or a post-Christian, whatever they have in Britain. But what I was going to say is, I wonder if maybe what he is also starting to see is that the atheist push is dying down a little bit. And it's easy. Because, let's be honest. He's a prophet of his own religion. He absolutely was. Mm-hmm. But I think if you start seeing like, oh, the thing I hoped was going to happen is not going to happen. It turns out that atheism really isn't that appealing to people. It's only appealing to angry people who want to fight against something, but it doesn't really give you that much to stand on. What does give you something to stand on is God. Yeah. And so obviously those religions are growing much, much faster. So now that's why I think he's coming back and saying, well, okay, I'd much rather have Christianity. Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that all atheism appeals to only angry people. I think his brand of atheism, because there's quite a few atheists who do not like Richard Dawkins.
Yeah, well, I'm sure.
I think between the two, Sam Harris, I've listened to some of his stuff too, and he is trying to be a little bit more logical. He's not as demeaning and denigrating as Richard Dawkins. Richard Dawkins is just totally demeaning and
it's funny that he can get away with all that rhetoric, because I feel like if roles were reversed, or we were talking about, Islam or Mormonism, if we were to carry on the way that Dawkins has carried on about Christianity, it wouldn't look good.
No.
And to me, it's just poor taste all around, like the way that you've been carrying on.
And I think it's been ebbing. I think people wanted that, and now they're like, I don't think I want that anymore.
The movement has really died down.
Yeah.
It was at a fever pitch 15, 20 years ago. They were really popular. He was selling a lot of books. He was speaking a lot of places. He had an ad on the buses in England that was really popular. It said, "Relax, there's probably no God," or something like that. And I don't know. And
a money grab. He's
making a lot of money.
He's carrying on and making money.
But I don't know. I don't know if anyone knows his exact motivations. What struck me again about this was he's worked so hard to destroy Christianity, and now he's lamenting that if it's gone, what's coming in its wake is not.
Well, and I think he thought that you could remove it and just keep the nice bits that he likes,
right,
and just replace.
Yeah, I don't think you can.
God with science, and I think he's realizing you can't do that.
It's not the same thing, but Jesus talks about like when you cast a demon out, and if you don't put something in its place, 10 more demons come and take its place, and I think that's kind of the void there cannot be filled by atheism.
Yeah,
there's just
it was interesting talking about trying to rebuild. You take out Christianity, all of those ancient, old-fashioned tenets, and you try to replace them with things. Because I think Dawkins has gone vegan, and he's, talking about how you treat animals ethically, and if animals can suffer, we shouldn't mistreat them in this or that way, And that's easily becoming a religion too. It's like, to me, it's like, okay, so you take out God, what are the alternatives? And one is that you say, like, you start going like, all life is valuable,
right?
All life is equally valuable,
right?
Okay, so you just killed some animals,
right.
You're less valuable,
right.
Or what, Marxism, which is you're more powerful than me, so we can take you down,
right?
And that also devalues humans.
Yep. Yep.
So it's like Christianity, along with the freedom, also valuing humans as the crown of creation, giving them the responsibility of managing the world,
caring for it.
Like, that seems like the way to go to me, but
yeah, So Christianity would say, according to Genesis, where humans are made in God's image, and that humans have rights. Animals, we have responsibility towards animals. We have responsibility towards creation, but they don't have rights in the same way that humans have rights. And it's our job to care for creation and be responsible and humane. It's even an interesting word, humane. Like this.
I was just thinking of that the other day.
Yeah, humane. Like humane means that you value humans.
Yeah.
And so, but if you're just looking at the world without anyone telling you what's more valuable, you could value people based on their usefulness, their strength, their smarts, their looks, or whatever. But it's God's word that says humans are intrinsically valuable. And so what doesn't matter their mental capacities or their financial capacities or whatever it is, they deserve protection. And that's, I think, the foundation of morality.
Yeah, there's so many logical little traps that you have to fall into when you take God out. And you're like, wait, but if I'm going to believe everyone's equal, then everyone's equal. And that means I am no more valuable than a centipede.
Right.
And it's like,
oh dear, you're right.
You paint yourself in a corner there. But that's the set of beliefs you've chosen. And if you're going to be logically consistent, you have to go down that road.
Yeah.
And that's why I think like atheism, you start by attacking like what are the dangers of religion. Well, then you have to take a step back and say, okay, well, all religion is bad.
Yeah.
Okay, all religion is bad. That means there's no good and evil. You have to start taking these steps. Well, if there's no good and evil, then who are we to punish anybody?
Yeah.
So we should reform the entire legal system.
Interesting.
Right.
You have to take the steps because of what you've set yourself up with.
I think it was John Lennox, who's a Christian apologist and mathematician from Oxford, and he said something like, if you have the logic that all religion is bad because you've seen some bad characters, some bad religious people, you have to say the same thing like all government is bad.
Totally.
Because there's like some bad government leaders out there.
Totally.
But you could, there's maybe the issues, some humans are bad. Humans need a savior. We're sinful.
Right.
And so when you put a bunch of humans together, whatever kind of institution it is, it has the capacity to go wrong, whether that's a business or a government or a religious organization.
Right.
And so it's easy to poke holes at religion, but you could say the same for any kind of institutional gathering, and you wouldn't say, well, now all government is bad, we should get rid of all government because there's been some bad government. No. So I don't know. It's an interesting backtracking. I think he's concerned about his country and his livelihood, but then you should also
you're a part of this, man. Like you did this, or at least contributed to it.
Right, exactly.
So, is he maybe feeling the burden?
I think so.
Like feeling the burden of his contribution to this? I mean, come on.
But then, in the interview, he has to kind of end it by saying, "Oh, and by the way, I still think it's all nonsense. But I wish Christians would stick around. But I think they're all
maybe that's why I'm so uncomfortable with feeling it's just doublespeak, because I'm like, you did this, guy, or part of it, and now, but then still you're worried about it, you're sweating bullets, and then you go back and continue on doing it,
making fun of it.
Like it doesn't even make sense to me,
right?
At all.
I think I've heard more and more atheists who are trying to distance themselves from him in this movement of the new atheists. But that's a new idea, because for a while, everybody seemed to be on board with Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris and all them. Just these, even the names of their books, The God Delusion, like, oh, you're delusional if you believe in God, or the end of faith, it's all coming to an end. Well, it's not coming to an end. It's just, it's getting more religious than ever. It's just not always healthy religion. Yeah, I agree with you, Annie. It's frustrating too, and I think that's why it's made news. That's why it's out there.
He's lost credibility with me. And not that he ever had it, but like, Yeah, just inconsistent.
No soup for you.
Nope.
I think the message here is humans more valuable than animals. Go eat some fish.
Boom.
Amen.
If you'd like to get a hold of us here at the Climbing Sycamores podcast, feel free to email bsadler@victoryofthelamb.com. bsadler@victoryofthelamb.com. If you like today's intro music, it's been brought to you by Andrew Lynch's song, My Name, Hello.